Hello and good night to everyone. Good night and welcome to all of you who are here for the St. Thomas District of Seventh day Adventists for our Sunday Evangelistic experience. We are glad that you were here with us, those of you who are here on Zoom, and those of you who are joining us via YouTube. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I can assure you that tonight is going to be a good night. The St. Thomas District, we are moving into a new season of the way that we are doing things, and our evangelistic experiences taking on a different view, a different vibe, if you want to put it that way. But before we get into our session for tonight, before I tell you some more about what we're looking at, I just want to invite you to bow your heads for a word of prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you, Lord. We thank you for this new day. We thank you for this new month. We thank you for the start of this new week. We thank you for this first session of our evangelistic experience in our district. Lord, we know that you want us to make sure that we are well-rounded in our experience. It's about the spiritual, it's about the mental, it's about the physical. And so we as a district, we're coming together to make sure that our members and our friends and our families, that they can gain the knowledge so that we can have a wonderful experience as we walk this Christian pathway with you. I ask that you will be with the proceedings tonight, be with our presenter, and I ask indeed that that as we keep our minds focus on you, that we will indeed have that peace which passeth understanding. So continue to be with us and bless us in Jesus' name. Amen. Our focus verse for tonight is taken from Isaiah chapter 26, verse 3, and it reads, "You will keep whole and in peace all who set their minds on you." And so our focus for tonight is my mind and me. And this focus is on mental health. That's what we are looking at tonight. And it's very important that we focus on that because in recent times here in Barbados, we know that it's been a bit stressful. We've been dealing with COVID. We've been dealing with the ash fall. We've been dealing with unemployment. We've been dealing with sickness. So many things that we have been dealing with. And yes, even though we know that God is there and God is going to bring us through, there are some times when it is that you just cannot, you need a little bit more. Sometimes there are some persons who need a little bit more. And that's what we are going to delve into tonight. Now, I did some research, and I know that in many places, the fact that a person may have a mental illness, there's a stigma that is attached to having any type of mental health disorder. But we can see who that is impacting. Just recently, we have had a number of young men who committed suicide. And in my mind, I'm thinking, if there wasn't anyone that they could talk to, etc. But when you hear the reports, you get the reports, persons are saying, oh, but they look so happy and everything looks so fine. No one expected that this is what would be happening, that these young persons, that they would actually go ahead and that they would commit suicide. Again, because of that strong stigma that's attached to these mental disorders, it actually affects persons from getting psychological help. In a research article which was written by BMC Public Health, and it is titled "Stigma for Common Mental Disorders in Racial Minorities and Majorities, a Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis," this was published on the 8th of June, 2020. And this was something that they found. They found common mental disorders such as depression and anxiety disorders are highly prevalent, disabling, and costly, with diminished quality of life, medical morbidity, and mortality. It is estimated that every year, almost 1 in 5 people among the general population worldwide suffer from these common mental disorders. And again, it's largely too because of this strong stigma that is attached. So just picture back in the day, these two ladies having a conversation. Let's call them Mabel and Claudine. They're having this conversation. They're sitting in front of Claudine's, they're outside sitting on the step and they're talking. And Mabel just asked Claudine, how are you doing? Claudine's response was, girl, I really don't know. I'm feeling so sometime-ish. So Mabel's question was sometime-ish because she wants to know sometime-ish. What do you mean by that? Mabel's response was that she's feeling so fatigued and there's so much that she wants to do, but there's this thing that's just hanging over her head, just seems to be hanging, and there's the anxiety and everything that just seems to be clinging to her, and she doesn't know what she should do. Mabel responded, it sounds like you need to talk to someone about this so that you can get out of this funk that you're in. What was Claudine's response? Who, me? Not me. For people to think I'm mad? Not me. That is usually a common response, where from the time that something is happening, the immediate thought is a person is mad when you hear persons talk about having a mental disorder. Now that's from my research, but I have someone here who can better tell you about mental health. Now, just a few reminders. After our presenter, we probably have a short question and answer session if you have any questions. And after that, I will invite our pastor, Pastor Bernard Prescott. He will come and he will offer a word of prayer if for any reason any persons want to have any prayer. And he will also give us our announcements at the end. So I just want you to stay on board for that because we will have a special prayer and our pastor will give us our announcements before we actually wrap up. So stay for that. Keep your questions in mind. If you probably want to put them in the chat, I'm inviting you to do so. For those of you who are on YouTube, put them in the chat. We will get your questions so that they can be asked as well. So let me invite our presenter. She is no stranger to any of us. If you have been following our recent TNT, Thursday Night Talks, the women's edition, she was our featured presenter. And again, it was on touching a bit on this topic, mental health, but our focus was on the pause and mental health. But tonight she is going to talk about mental health to help us get past this stigma and ways in which we can best manage in this time with mental health. And so we have Ms. Shauntée Walters. And Shauntée is a registered counseling psychologist here in Barbados, and she's also a member of the Barbados Psychological Society. She holds a Master of Science degree in counseling psychology from the University of the West Indies, and she is one of the founders and directors of Life Intervention and Support Services. And this is a clinical counseling agency. There, she provides psychological and therapeutic interventions for individuals, couples, and groups. Ms. Walters worked on a voluntary basis as a supervisor for social work students in their final year of study, as well as students pursuing the MSc Counseling Psychology program from UWI Cave Hill. She has also served on faculty with USC Barbados, teaching courses in behavioral sciences, counseling, and various aspects of psychology. I can do the research and give you tidbits, but Shauntée, who is well-versed on this topic, can tell you much more. So I invite you, Sister Shauntée, to tell us how can we deal with mental health, how it pertains to our mind, and all those things that we can do now to help us in this time and to cope.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you so much for inviting me once again to share with you. And I trust that as we share and as we learn and as we discuss, that we will all leave better informed than when we came. Now, I'm going to start to share my screen with you, but as I do that, I want you to respond to this question for me in the chat. Now, I noted that the topic was my mind and me. So can anybody tell me what they think is the difference between your mind and your brain? I can only see Nicole's face as usual. What is the difference between your mind and your brain? I'm not going to be able to see the chat, sorry, once I share. So, Sister Nicole, you're going to have to help me out here a bit. Difference between mind and brain. Anybody?
Nobody as yet that I can see. Maybe persons are wondering if there really is a difference.
Another few seconds and let's see. Okay, we ask the question another way. Who's the doctor who deals with the brain and who's the doctor who deals with the mind? Are they the same person?
The doctor who deals with the brain and the no, I don't believe they are the same person.
I see the chat is blinking. Can you?
Okay, that response is no.
Oh,
that they're not the same. I'm in agreement. They're not the same.
Okay. So the brain is the organ. The doctor who deals with the brain would be the neurologist, who deals with whether the parts of the brain are where they're supposed to be, whether when they test them, the blood is going as it's supposed to be. And say more answers in the chat. Can you check those before I
Yes, there are. So Kim is saying we have the neurologist versus the psychiatrist.
Yes.
And then Ali Joe is saying the brain equals the control tower, the mind equals the conscious part of a person. I think Ali Joe is a person that really knows the mind well. She knows what she's thinking about. I think she may be in the medical
she might be
facility. Yes, please. I suspect so.
Oh, okay. I will go with your suspicion then. So really and truly, the brain is the organ and the mind is the function of the organ. So one is tangible, you can touch it, so you can touch the brain, but the mind is intangible, it cannot be touched. The mind has to do with your thoughts, your desires, I guess the calculations that you do, all of those things. So there is a distinction. That's why the person who responded, the neurologist versus the psychiatrist, there is a distinction. So when I saw the topic, I was like, yes, they've got it. My mind and me, as opposed to my brain and me. So we're going to be looking at how to be in good mental health. And in your introduction, Nicole, you did speak really well to the stigma that is attached to just the word mental. And we know in Barbados, we have a particular location where we say, gone to the mental.
Yep.
And I would have grown up hearing that. And that is in our psyche, whether we say consistently, whether we actually hear it or not, there is a stigma attached. So much so that just recently I was doing a flyer for a presentation and the organization sent back and asked me to remove mental from the flyer.
Oh.
Just put health. Because they believe that because of the stigma attached to it, that persons would not come to the presentation because we're going to think that they are mad. So they're not going to come to the presentation. But if you say health and then you address and define mental health, that's okay. But don't put it on the flyer. And that is where we are. My position really is to put it on more flyers. Keep it out there because we have to work to reduce the stigma. But as we continue, we're going to look at really what mental health is. so that when we hear these words going forward, we understand it is not what we think it is or what we have been taught it is. So let's jump right in. All right, so you would have done a bit of introduction about LASS. Just sharing with you who we are, what we do. So our aim really is to relieve and minimize suffering and distress resulting from life's interventions. And we're going to do this through the provision of timely and relevant counseling and psychological therapy. And as you did mention, we do therapy for individuals, couples, and groups, and we do it in a safe and non-judgmental environment, as well as the provision and facilitation of education and training opportunities for clients and helping professionals and the general public in areas relevant to needed interventions. And this that we're doing right now would fit under the second aim. Now, the objectives for the session tonight: to define and explain the term mental health, to outline the mental health continuum is a concept that we're going to share, to tell about the different sections of the continuum, give examples of different points, identify the mental health issues of 2020, 2021, our life right now, explain how to maintain good mental health, and just give some tips. And then we can talk and we can share about what works for persons. Now, I'm not preaching. This is important to understand. I find that lots of times I go to do presentations and persons expect me to be preaching. I'm not preaching. But I want us to, as we go forward, to acknowledge a few things. It is God who heals us. And these truths underpin everything that we do. Exodus 15:26 says, I am the Lord your God who heals your diseases. And regardless of what type of health issue it is, physical health, emotional health, mental health, whatever the issue is, it is God ultimately who heals us. He gives persons knowledge and understanding to help us, the physicians, the practitioners, but ultimately it is Him. Proverbs 18:21 says that death and life are in the power of the tongue. And I find sometimes we quote scripture, but we don't really understand how deep the meaning goes. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. And I always say that psychology and Christianity are not in opposition to each other, because psychology would say this in another way. It would say that you're speaking things into your life. It would say that you need to be careful the affirmations that you give yourself, because you're going to walk in that. And there are lots and lots of theories, but the Bible already said it. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Proverbs 23:7 says, for as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Our thoughts have power, just as our words have power. And when we learn and understand the enormity of the power that they have, we'll be very, very careful with the things that we say to ourselves and say to other persons, as well as seeking to control our thoughts and where we allow our thoughts to go, because there is great power in them. All right, so just two images here. This one says going to a therapist when you're feeling sad or overwhelmed should be as normal as going to the doctor when you have the flu. Let's end the stigma about mental health. We know if we have a fever, we wake up tomorrow morning with a fever, we're going to try with it with some paracetamol. We might not even try the 24 hours before we call the doctor or we go to the doctor. We're going to pray, but we're going to go to the doctor. So we need to normalize seeking help for emotional and mental health issues, as opposed to, I ain't going for somebody to see me. Our office right now is in a multi office building. So there's lawyers and credit union and other businesses in the building. That works in our favor, because somebody walking up to the door, somebody seeing me walk up to the door, has no idea which office I'm going into. But a lot of the therapist offices that are standalone buildings, persons don't want to walk up to there, because anybody seeing you, they will know automatically this is who you are going. This is where you're going to. You're going to access the services of a counselor, of a therapist, of a psychologist. And because of the stigma persons don't go. That's why you will find a lot of psychologists' offices are in the same spaces as doctors' offices, because it's just as though you're going to the doctor. Nobody knows which room you're going in when you go on the inside. Again, the stigma that exists here and elsewhere. This one says, I'm off to therapy should be as normal as saying I'm off to the gym. Now, those who are here, I just want you to think for a moment. If you've ever been to a counselor, ever been to therapy, did you announce it to anybody? Did the people in your home even know that that's where you were going? Furthermore, the people on the outside. And if they did not, why not? What stopped you from sharing that information? All right. So what is mental health? According to the World Health Organization, and this is the definition that I continue to use, mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. So those 4 things. 1, realize your potential. 2, can cope with the normal stresses of life. And I stress normal there because a lot of the things that are going on now are not normal. The normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to her or his community. Those are the 4 tenets of mental health. So if you're able to do all of those things, you're considered to be in good mental health. Now, the mental health continuum is represented by this image. I hope that at least you can see it clearly, but if you had to Google, you would see it, or you would see a similar representation. So this is a scale. And on one end of the scale, or of this range, you have what is considered good mental health or mental wellness. And on the other end of this scale or this continuum, you have what is considered poor mental health or mental illness. Now, the thing about this is that all of us sit on this continuum on a daily basis. We are somewhere between the green and the red every day. So being on this continuum does not mean that you're mentally ill. It does not mean that you need to go to a psychiatrist. It just means that we're alive. Once we're alive, we are sitting somewhere on this continuum. The first 2, the green, and let's call that beige, healthy and reacting. The issues that may arise in those 2 categories can be addressed through self-care and social support. The other 2, the orange and the red, let's call them that, the issues that may arise in those 2 require professional care or professional intervention. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go through each one, each section. And as I do that, I want you to think about where you are today. Because the other issue is that I may be in green today, but tomorrow I might be in orange. And that is dependent on the experiences. That is dependent on what it is that is happening around us. If there was any incident or any accident or any issue, if there was something that triggered us back to something in our past, we can move up and down the continuum, or we do move up and down the continuum on a daily basis. It's just dependent on the experiences that we have. So let's look at the first section. And I have it colored, the header, in green. This is where the person is considered to be functioning normally. So this is when you are in good mental health, or your mental wellness is high. This person sleeps well, is physically and socially active, is self-confident, their moods are stable, so they don't have many fluctuations. They're not underreacting or overreacting. They're reacting in ways that are considered appropriate to the situation or to the stimuli. They have an overall calm and a peaceful state of mind. So their mind isn't racing, going anywhere. They seem to be just good and settled. They're content with their life. They're maybe self-motivated and energetic and physically healthy. So when you think about those things, is that where you are today? I'm not. And that's okay. Because we go up and we go down the continuum, depending on what it is that's going on in our life. So using this example, or these examples here, somebody who may be having a challenge with their physical health, that can push them out of the green. They may have all these other things, but there's just a challenge with the physical health, and that may cause them to move from green to beige. And that's okay. The issue really is understanding where you are and why you are there. So that is the green. This is the beige. You move from normal to reacting. And this is where there's common distress, there's mild distress, and there's reversible distress. Remember, these first two, the green and the beige, if we go back to the picture, are where self-care is important. Let me just go back a moment. Self-care and social support for the green and the beige. Any of the issues that may arise here can be dealt with through self-care and having appropriate social support. All right, so this person who's reacting, or in this section of the continuum, may be irritable, maybe nervous, maybe impatient or sad, maybe unable to really relax or sleep. You know, sometimes persons tell you, I'm not really sleeping, I'm not getting into that deep sleep. They may be procrastinating, maybe forgetful, or avoiding socializing with others, so they're keeping to themselves. This person is vulnerable to stress. They may be feeling overwhelmed at times. They may have some self-doubt creeping in, causing anxiety for them to perform or do their work or fulfill whatever responsibility they have to. They may be tired and lacking in energy. So we have moved from healthy to reacting, from green to beige. So when you hear that description, is that where you are today? You don't have to share it with us, but just think about it, if this is where you are today. And when was the last time that you were in green? If you were in green yesterday, then what happened between yesterday and today that caused you now to be in the beige? The third category of the continuum, remember the third and the fourth is where we suggest that you get some professional help. And professional help can come from a number of places. This is where you're injured. So there's functional impairment. In this category, your sleep may be disturbed. There's an inability to concentrate, frequent anger, perhaps an anxiety. There's sadness, feelings of inadequacy, restlessness, irritability, lacking motivation to take up new challenges, overall feeling of apathy, and unexplained fatigue to perform daily duties. Just don't have whatever it is to get up and go. Tired, can sleep all day long and still be tired. And this is not necessarily attributed to any physical illness or medication that you're taking that is making you tired and making you sleep. Deterioration in personal and professional relationships. The investment in the relationships is not a priority anymore. So this person in this space is not doing that. There may be substance and drug abuse. Now, normally when we say substance and drugs, we think of illicit substances, but there may also be overindulgence in particular types of food or particular types of activities as a distraction Or sometimes you would hear a person say to you, I just needed to feel something. So I did XYZ to see if I could feel anything, because there's the inability to really feel and to connect. So this is the orange section. If you're in this section, professional help is recommended. So that's green, beige, and orange. The final section on the continuum is the red section. And this is when you're in serious trouble. This is when persons looking on can see that you are in serious trouble. For the other three sections, especially the beige and the orange, most of the time, persons don't know what it is that's going on. We're fine. We go to work, we do what we have to do, we meet our deadlines, whatever. But this one, there is no doubt. Your family will note that you're in trouble, whether you listen to them or not. But they will note, persons who have any investment in your life will note that something is going on. Now, this is where you have extreme anxiety, and it causes social isolation. So this person now is more removed from their social circle. They're not even coming to Zoom church. Extreme mood swings. So you're emotionally dysregulated. You're not responding to situations in a way that the general population would think is appropriate. You're overreacting, flying off of the hat, or it is no reaction at all, no effort to respond when a response is warranted. Sleeping and eating disorders. Now, this would have started when you were in the orange. Difficulty sleeping, trying to sleep and maybe up all night, maybe getting just 1 hour. And then you wake up and perhaps you're on social media or watching TV or something, so you're not sleeping. Your body's just going. Eating disorders, eating too much, maybe eating too little. But the way that you were eating or the way that you eat normally has changed, and you know that there's an issue. It's not just other persons know, you know as well in this space that there is an issue. Alcohol or drug abuse. And this drug is not just the illicit drugs, because there's some of us who have chronic pain conditions and issues, and we have pain medication. So you may take more than is prescribed for you to take, because again, you may want to dull what it is that you're thinking about or the way that you're feeling, or you might just want to try to sleep because you're not sleeping and your body's going to be tired and reacting from that. Inability to perform daily responsibilities. So your day-to-day is suffering. Just the basic things, not even getting to the point where it is work related and external responsibility related, your day-to-day, including basic self-care. Again, people will notice. You might smell, or they might realize your teeth, you're not brushing your teeth, or you're not combing your hair. You had your hair in one for the past how many ever weeks and you didn't even brush it up. And people can tell that that's how it is. It will be noticed. Marked deterioration in academic and professional achievements. Because the drive is not there, the investment is not there, whatever happens, happens. This point is the point at which some persons may have to be given medication, may be in therapy consistently, but there's a progression. So you don't wake up one morning and land in the red. Even if you did not start in the green, there's the progression from the beige to the orange to the red. And let me emphasize here again, all of us sit on this continuum every day. And we move to the left, we move to the right, depending on the experiences that we're having, what it is that's going on around us, and how we are interpreting those experiences. So the thoughts, as a man thinketh, and then the things that we're saying to ourselves. So where are you on this continuum? That's the question that I wanted to sit with for a moment. Where are you? You don't have to answer, but I think that right now I am in the beige. And I need to make sure that I do what I need to do, that I don't go into the orange. But I'm in the beige. I have been in the orange. I don't recall ever being in the red, but I have been in the orange at times. And there are particular steps that I had to take to make sure that I got out of the orange. So right now I'm in beige, I'm not in green. You have to remember that events and experiences impact us negatively or positively, and that mental health influences all other aspects of our health and of our life. I think I said this last time that we tend to have health but in these little pockets. Mental health, physical health, emotional health, social health, and they're not connected, but they're all connected. Being in good physical health impacts your mental health. Being in poor mental health impacts your physical health. They're all connected. So we cannot focus on one area and not the other. So I just pulled back up the definition for you, and I have it highlighted, the points highlighted in red. Are you able right now to realize your potential? Are you coping with the normal stresses of life? Do you have the ability to work productively and fruitfully? And are you able to make a contribution to your community? All right, so let's look at what has been going on. Just 3 more slides and then we'll be through. 1, 2, 3, sorry, 5. Let's just look at what's been going on. So there's COVID, this pandemic, that is the first one that anyone in our generation has ever experienced. It's a steep learning curve, and it continues to get more and more steep because it continues to change, it continues to morph into all these different variants, all these different situations. It has brought with it lots of death. Sometimes the death is on the other side of the world, as we would put it, but it still impacts us. I found for myself the last few days, I could no longer take in any news from India. I could no longer do it. It was too much for me. And as I said, on the other side of the world, lots of death, whether across the world or whether in our own sphere. And it has made the deaths in our own sphere, even persons that we knew were ill, persons that we knew were terminally ill and perhaps dying, the way that we process their death is different now, because we have not the ritual of death and our ability to say goodbye. A lot of those things have been taken from us. We're doing the best that we can do with the streaming, and perhaps if we can go and stay the 6 feet, but the ritual is different. And what we would do to help ourselves to work through the grief and the loss and to say goodbye, we no longer have that. There's been a lot of job loss all over the world. And in Barbados, they were speaking about the strain under which the unemployment benefit program was placed. So there's so many persons who are on furlough, all the tourism workers and the hotel workers, and they've been on furlough over a year. And they have no idea, and they've been let go, they've been laid off until they have no idea when they will be able. There's some families that both adults work in that sector and they're struggling. You know that I work in a school, and there's some children that I know are struggling because before all of this, their meal was at school. That was the guaranteed meal. And now they're at home all this time. There's a lot of confusion because we don't understand what it is that's going on, why it is happening. We're asking questions that the answers aren't coming. What we understood to be normal no longer exists. And it will not exist again, because there's certain things that when you pass through them, there's no going back to what we knew prior. We have to develop, create, learn to live in a new normal. So what we knew, everything that we knew to be normal no longer exists. There's mass uncertainty and there is loss of control. Now, as Christians, we accept that we don't have control over anything. But still, God gave us the power of choice. So at least we were able to determine when we stepped out of our house. That was taken with COVID. And then even when we were able to stay within the confines of our property, then there was the ash. Some of us still can't really step outside because there's a really fine ash now. And us acknowledging this does not mean that we are comparing ourselves to those in St. Vincent. And we're thinking, we're minimizing their challenges and their struggle. But our experience is real as well. And we are also trying to navigate and trying to work through all of these things. And all of these things that I have listed here, they're packed one on top of the other. So it's not that we have just one item off the list dealing with. We're dealing with all of them. And then there is the fear. What is going to happen? I don't know. What is next week going to look like? I have no idea. Will we ever get back to a time where we are free to leave home indefinitely as we please? Are we ever going to fly again freely? Unless we absolutely have to go wherever in the world. Are we going to ever say I'm just going on holiday and buy some tickets? We don't know. Persons are very, very stressed. Again, the experiences and the situations are being packed one on top of the other, stacked one on top of the other. Anxiety and depression. I don't know how many of you would have been listening to just the media, the local media over the past few weeks up to, I think on Friday, another official at the psychiatric hospital was speaking about the increase in the number of persons who are seeking mental health services. And before, they were speaking about the increase in the number of persons being diagnosed with anxiety and being diagnosed with depression since the advent of COVID. And this is because persons, the coping skills that they had prior to COVID to address any situation, they're not working now for the realities that we're facing. So they become anxious and they don't have the tools or the knowledge as to how to address the anxiety. And then really and truly, if both adults in my home are on furlough and we can't eat, and their children, and sometimes there are things that we would work through for ourselves, but when our children ask us or say to us, that's a pain that we cannot process. And this is something that's been going on for so long. So there's been a lot of anxiety, a lot of depressions in our population. A lot of persons who had known and diagnosed mental illnesses, their medication has been increased. They've been having more challenges with it. And then a lot of others who did not, they have developed mental health challenges. And then illness. There are a lot of persons who may have had chronic illnesses and they were doing their best to work with them and manage them, but they have been experiencing a lot of flares because of the stress and the impact of the stress and the situations on their life. So the way that they are handling the illnesses is different because the pain is more, the interpretation of the pain is more, their tolerance level is less. Again, all of these things being stacked one on top of the other. So what do we do? Now, if we cast our minds back to the image of the continuum, the first two sections were dealt with or can be dealt with through self-care and social support. Now, self-care, you're going to hear this over and over and over again, regardless of who's speaking to you, because it is so important. It is that important. We need to take the time to take care of ourselves as best we can and to focus on ourselves so that we can then pour out into other people, as opposed to we're giving, and our cup is empty and we're still trying to pour into other people. So one of the first things that I recommend is that we extend some grace to ourselves. Think of whatever situation it is. If a situation comes up tomorrow, think about it. If it were your sister or your friend or your church member in that situation, what would you say to them? And what causes you not to say that same thing to yourself? Lots of times we are so hard on ourselves. So we need to extend some grace to ourselves. Accept that if today is a day where we can't do all 10 things on the list, that's okay. Rest. Not saying that we should lower our standards, but sometimes we have some standards that are ridiculously high. We need to give ourselves a break sometimes. It's okay not to be on point all the time. And remember that 100% today and 100% tomorrow are two different things, because you have to consider everything that is going on in your life at the moment. Be patient with yourself and be patient with others, because we're managing a lot, we're processing a lot, and it takes time. And the way in which we process and manage is different based on the skill set that we have. And the skill set that we have comes from our socialization, comes from our knowledge, comes from our experience. So we're not all going to have the same skill set. There's some things that I may be able to deal with quickly and better, and then there's some things that I may be stuck. And Sister Nicole or somebody else will be able to deal with it because her experiences or your experiences are different to mine. We need to admit our feelings to ourselves. So we need to be honest with ourselves, right? Shauntée, you really ain't working out today. Honest with ourselves and honest with our tribe, honest with those persons who are invested in our health and in our well-being, with our loved ones. When somebody asks us how we are doing, if we're not fine, we shouldn't say fine as we do all the time. Most of the time we say, I'm fine. No matter what it is that's going on, I'm fine, I'm good. And we bounce and go along and we know full well that we're not good. We say we cannot heal what we don't reveal. If you don't name it, if you don't admit it, then we can't process it and work through it and heal it. We need to monitor our experiences and our symptoms. We need to be able to say, you know what, on Monday, I slept 4 hours Monday night, but on Wednesday night and Thursday night, I only got 1 hour. So something else is going on. Something is up. We need to monitor ourselves to see if we're deteriorating in any area. We need to monitor how we're feeling about things. Whether it is we just don't feel like getting up in the morning and we only get it because somebody else in the house is dependent on us, or we're ready to jump up and go and rush into the day, and then all of a sudden we just don't have that desire, that drive. We don't feel like brushing our teeth. We have to monitor those things. And when we realize that we are deteriorating, or we are being less attentive, or we are doing something that we should do less, then we need to reach out for help. Now, initially, help might just be somebody to talk to. It might just be a friend to share the situation and share the burden, somebody to hold space with you. That might be the initial thing. It can move from there to speaking to the pastor, to asking the prayer warriors to pray for you, to speaking to your medical doctor. There are different categories of help, but it really depends on where you are and how you see the progression. Pace yourself. We can't do everything all the time. Sometimes you just need to stop. You need to give yourself a break and start another time. So we need to pace. Get help if needed. Again, those categories of help, those different places where we can get help. Participate in activities that you love. There must be something that you love to do. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something that requires you to leave your home. Because, there's some of us, I would always say I'm a homebody. I'm usually at home, but I like to know that I have the option to leave home if I wanted to. So to have that option taken from me was a problem. But then I had to find things that I love to do that I can continue to do at home. Replace what I may have done outside, go and sit with my chair at the beach and watch the water. That's what I would have done, with something that I can do inside. Perhaps do some adult coloring or fix a puzzle or cook a special meal, but we need to participate in activities that we love, because those activities contribute to the feel good hormones. It contributes to the way the chemicals operate in our brain. It contributes to all of those things. Feed your spirit. Again, things that you love, things that fill you up and make you feel good. You need to do those things. And they're not necessarily things that always cost money. We need to create those opportunities for ourselves. Meditate. Sit and talk to God. Sit and contemplate God. Pray. Be thankful for the little things, because lots of times we're so focused in the big things that we forget the little things. And when we are forced to stay in a space, we have to still find the things there that we can be thankful for, because we are trying to keep our mind in a space that is positive as opposed to in a negative space. Remember, as we think, so are we. Prioritize your eating. Lots of times when we start to get anxious or we start to feel sad, we don't eat. Or we eat a lot of things that we shouldn't eat so much of. I know for myself, I love a chocolate, but I shouldn't eat chocolate. So I have made a point not to bring any chocolate into my house. But let me go into any place that sells chocolate when I am having a bad day. There is nothing you can do to stop me from buying 3 or 4 of them and then eating them and then saying, Shauntée, shouldn't eat the chocolate, Like all your sinuses going off, your head hurting, your this, but I already ate it. So we need to prioritize our eating, but make sure that we're eating the things that are going to feed us, give us the nutrients that we need. Yes, it's okay to have something that you like, a scoop of ice cream or a scoop of sorbet or a piece of chocolate or something, but that's a once in a while situation. It's not an every week, and it's definitely not an everyday thing. But when we get sad and we get down, we either don't eat. It's like, I really don't feel like eating. I drink a little water. I had some juice today. I had a little shake, but I didn't really feel like eating food. It's either that, or it is all the fried things and all the greasy things and all those things that taste so fabulous but are so horrible for us. It is all of those things that we're stuffing because we're trying to fill a void or trying to deal with the situation without actually processing it and speaking it. Bathroom breaks. That might seem hilarious. Every time I do this, sometimes somebody laughs. How many of us go to work in the morning at our dining room table, for instance, and 2 o'clock comes and we go, oh wait, I haven't been in the bathroom for the day. Oh, I'll go in half hour. 4 o'clock comes and we still haven't gone. It is important that we do these things because we do not want to create situations in our body which are going to cause problems, because remember, our physical health impacts our mental health. Exercise, again, feel good hormones are released when we exercise, and we feel better when we exercise. So it's important. Some movement is better than no movement. So if you can't do half hour, do 10 minutes. If you can't do 10 minutes, do 5 one day, 7 the next, and you will get to 10, and you will eventually get to the half hour. But exercise and make it a priority. Be intentional about it. regardless of how you feel before you start. There's some things we have to decide we're going to do and just do them. Because if we wait on how we feel, we will never do them. Prioritize family time. It's important to have activities in the home for your family, and even more so now, whether they're children or not, whether it's just a couple, just two adults, prioritize family time. If it's you on your own, prioritize virtual family time. Connect with your family wherever they are. Set up particular times to have the calls, have lunch together virtually. Prioritize this time and that connection. Because remember, social support along with self-care helps to address the issues in the first two sections. And they also help in the last two sections, but you need to add the professional assistance. Share and support others. Lots of times when we turn our focus external to us, it helps to put everything that's going on with us in perspective. It helps us to realize that we're not the only person who's having a particular challenge, and then we can support each other. One day I might need Nicole to hold space for me, and the next day I can hold space for her, and we support each other. The final thing that I would add to that is make sure to seek help. There is no shame in seeking help. The same way that 8 hours of a fever and you're going to be at the doctor sitting down, seek the help. The friends, the family, the pastor, the church family, the medical doctor, the counselor, the psychologist. Seek help. For some persons, it may just be a one conversation. For others, they may need to go into therapy for a period of time. For others, they may need medication. But if you understand the continuum and you're able to monitor yourself, then chances are you would not get to the red. Even if you get to the orange, there are things that you would know to do to help yourself to get back. Now, the 5 areas of therapeutic self-care, this is just to point out to you the fact that everything is connected. In the middle, the goal is to feel vital and balanced and free from depression and anxiety. So we need to have physical self-care, and you have nutrition, sleep, exercise, water, medication, supplements, breathing. But physical self-care, then you have lifestyle. You need to have a routine, you need to relax, you need to have goals, you need to have fulfilling work, spend time in nature, things that bring you pleasure. Mental and emotional self-care, positive self-talk. So be careful what it is that we say to ourselves. Speak positively. We say speak life, positive beliefs, feeling your feelings. There's some of us who love to journal. Journal if that works for you. Some persons may need to go to therapy. That's okay, but you need to take care of your mental and emotional health. Then we have people support. You have family, you have friends. Again, you have your spiritual leaders. You may have a support group. You may have a community group. Connect with them. And spiritual self-care, be sure to connect with God. The same way that we speak all the time about being intentional about our morning devotion and our evening devotion, we need to be intentional about our self-care and intentional about working to maintain not just our physical health, but our mental and emotional health. So there we are. Now, questions on anything that I would have said. Let me just stop sharing that I can see the chat properly. I guess to see I have to open it. Right.
So I am not seeing any, I haven't received any questions from our YouTubers. So I'm just reminding persons you can send your questions. If you have any questions I see your hand, Brother Justin. If you have any questions, any persons you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. For those who are on YouTube, if you have any questions, you can send them. If it is that maybe you want to reach out to Sister Shauntée separately, I will ask her to give her information so that you can know where to reach her. Brother Justin?
Yes, please. Good night
Good night.
to you, Sister Nicole, and good night to Sister Shauntée and all those who are joining us on our St. Thomas District platforms. So, Sister Shauntée, it was a very good presentation. I enjoyed it. I want to begin by the fact of this notion that we have that persons don't share that they're going to their therapist, but they share that they're going to the gym. And this stigma, what do you think it is contributing to the fact that we don't want to seek help? That is my first question, because I have a follow-up question to that. Why is it that it is so much a stigma attached to getting help as it relates to dealing with our minds?
I think that it, for the most part, is misunderstanding of what mental health is and what mental health issues are. And then coupled with that is our socialization and our history, and perhaps the way that persons would have been treated in the past and what we would have witnessed and the comments that would have been made. So we have been socialized to be afraid of anything that has to do with mental health. Anytime we hear it, there are red flags and bells and whistles and all those things that go off, and we have a particular image in our mind. I think in the past, persons may have, or those persons in authority may have done what they thought was best at the particular time, but improvements could have been had. So even now, if you drive past the psychiatric hospital and you see the patients, sometimes they're walking on the outside or they're by the gate and they're holding on, not by the gate, by the wall or by the rails, and they're holding on and shouting and doing those things. And that is our perception of what having a mental health challenge is. When really and truly, if we look at the definition that was given of mental health, persons with mental illnesses look just like us. And we're walking daily going along and nobody knows. It's just a health issue, just as any other health issue that we can have. And the final thing that I would say is, if I said to you that I have hypertension or I have high blood pressure, you're not going to run from me. So what makes you run from me if I say that I have anxiety or I have depression? They're just illnesses, and they can be treated, they can be managed. And the more that we give voice to it, the easier it would be for persons to access treatment, and the less of the image that we have with these persons walking around and screaming and those sort of things, the less of that will happen. Because that is when perhaps the person should have gotten an intervention a long time before, and they didn't, and they have their mind has deteriorated to a point where the coming back to a space where they're functional is a challenge. Your follow-up
Okay, great.
question.
Yes, I have I have a few more, if you don't mind. Now, I like how you marry the two about our culture, our history, all of these things being variables to attribute to the reason why we have this stigma. I also want to put now this stigma into the church now. Now, if now I've found in church that we are afraid of getting help, even in our marriages. You know, we go before the pastor, the counselor, before we are married. We don't do marriage checkups. That's one. Then the next thing would be then the aspect of for me being a elder in church, and I can see there are issues going on, right? And there are a lot of our members who you can see it, that there are some mental challenges, not that they are cuckoo or anything that what we want to call it, but they need you can see that they need the help, but they're afraid because one, we don't hold the things that they share with us, and that we lose a lot of persons because there's no connection, right, between the leader and the members. because for many things, we see this thing, man, go and pray. Just go and pray, you can be all right. But persons now need, not say that prayer don't work, prayer works, but there's also works that have to go along with that. And there's where you guys come in to fill, but we don't push that enough. I think we just push the spiritual aspect of it, where we just still go and pray and then the person go along. And then when we want persons to do things in church, we realize that the persons are not doing it. And I think it is because that we have not, as leaders, be trained enough in the area of seeing where there are issues with our members and being able to deal with them delicately and then point them to you guys where they need this special help, and then they could come back and do more in church. So I will pause there, and then I got the last question coming up.
What I would say to, I guess, that question and comment is that is multifaceted. On one hand, sometimes we may have leaders who would stand in front of the congregation, and I've heard this numerous times: Christians don't get depressed. Christians don't have anxiety. When you read the Bible, though, you realize that is not the case. But Christians don't this, Christians don't do that. And as a member sitting, listening about this, or listening to what is being said, I would start to wonder, am I truly a Christian? Is there something wrong with my faith? Is there something that I should be doing that I'm not doing? Am I praying enough? Something has to be wrong with me, because the leader, whatever title the leader holds, just said that. So we have to be careful what is said. Again, life and death are in the power of the tongue. That's one. The other thing is that there are times when we hold a belief and we do not speak it, but we portray in our actions and the way we interact with persons. So, or there even other times when we're not even consciously aware that we hold a belief, but we're portraying it to persons. So we are all raised in Barbados. We have all heard the stories. It is in all of us. And we have to make the conscious effort to behave differently, to treat people differently. As a church, I think that we need to shed more light on it. Take not just the stigma, take the mystery away from it. Educate more persons so that they start to understand really what mental health and mental health challenges can look like, and understand as well that there is help, that the same way you manage any other chronic illness, that these illnesses can be managed as well. The final thing about that is that we have to work as a church, individually, as persons, and collectively on confidentiality. We need to work on that, because that is something else that stops persons from sharing. Am I safe to share with you that I have this challenge? Any challenge, not just mental health issues, furthermore. Am I safe to share with you and not hear it someplace else? We like to talk too much. That is a reality. It's sad, but it's the reality. And we need to work on those things. So we need to really sit and determine how we want to address the challenges, and then individually and collectively find a way to deal with them. And there must be consequences, and we put that in quotation marks. For instance, if the thing that you're working on is confidentiality, and I, Shauntée, go and spread somebody's business, then something must be said to me. And that person that I have hurt by my words, I need to make restitution to them, or something must be said to them, that they understand and I understand that this is not the way that we are going forward, that we're working to be better, we're working to be different. So it's all of those things together in my mind.
All right, and my final point here, since you are dealing with disclosure, I'm gonna disclose something. No, not something that will, be bad for on the internet or anything.
Okay.
No, no, changed some things about me. And I've realized persons will ask me, how you doing? Or how things. You know, we have a saying in Barbados, everything good. You know, that's the slang, that's the normal thing. I have said to myself, I can't say that. I say most things. Harley can tell you that I do that. And I remember saying to a guy in the store, and he looked back at me. He said, you really listen to the question? I said, yes, I often do. Most things are good. Not everything in my life is going great or going well. So I said, most things. So then the next thing I want to share now would be at work. We have a lot of discussions in my workplace, and I was talking about relationships. If my relationship with my spouse was to break down, where she had an affair, this is something we were discussing at work, and I said to them, guys, if my spouse had a relationship with one of the male counterparts at work, I personally would not want to come to work for the next 3 weeks or so. I said to them, I personally can't come to work. I will go home by my parents, and I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to recuperate, to get myself back till I could able to come to work. You know what happened? The guys laugh, man, you gotta come to work, man. You gotta come to work sometime. We can laugh. So I said, I internalized it. And I said to myself, you see, this is why we have so many suicides, especially in the male population. The females will talk, they can cry, and those kind of things, but we are afraid to express our sadness, our disappointment, our grief, and then we don't have no outlet. And then that is what happens. The neighborhood person laugh at you, this boy laugh at you. And there's a Christian person who responded to me this way. And they said to me, man, you gotta come to work, man, we can laugh, man. So this is how I find that we are socialized. We don't have, I talk about the men now. We don't have an area where we can cope, where we can talk to someone who will not laugh at us, who will not ridicule us, and those kind of things. So I don't know if in your own studies, if you have that kind of challenge where you have males not being able to share well or share their experiences. So that's my final thing, comment, and question.
Okay, thank you. For the most part, the females come to therapy readily. Even when it's couples therapy, the women usually come first. And then after a few sessions, then perhaps the male will come, or the male may come on his own, because the perception or the prevailing comment is, I don't need no therapy. I don't need no counseling. I'm a man, I can handle this, I can sort it out. And it is only when they come and really get involved that most of the time they will say, no, I'm not the couples and family therapist, so they don't usually come to me. I'm just speaking about LASS generally. I didn't realize how much I needed this. You helped me to work through so many things that I have been keeping and I have been bottling. And again, that is socialization. So all of us individually and then collectively as a church, we need to shed light on that as well, and not be afraid to stand vulnerable in front of other persons. Because the thing is, if I am vulnerable in front of the church or in front of other persons, that I might not know, but that is giving somebody else permission to be vulnerable. That is helping somebody else to say, you know what? I can do that. Or I have those same experiences. I can share, maybe I can share with her, or just give the permission. And I think males need that. And us women usually quarrel with me when I say this, but we raise the boys. And we have to be very, very careful with the things that we say. Again, life and death are in the power of the tongue. The things that we say to the boys and the way that we raise them, you stop crying, you're a little girl. Now, if we say that to the child from the time he's 1, 2, 3, what do we expect is going to happen? But if we have conversations, even when they don't want to have them, because obviously they're going to interact with their friends, and why they don't want to have these heart-to-heart conversations and those things, the boy might not be the one who wants to be hugging you up in the bed like the sister would be, and those things. But we need to find a way to reach them emotionally, again, individually and collectively as a church. So we acknowledge that these are issues that need attention, and we just have to focus on them, and we have to be consistent and intentional we're not going to get everything right. And what we're speaking about is changing the way that we behave and the way that we respond and reversing some of our socialization. And that's going to take time. But if each of us makes the decision to make the effort, then collectively the effort would be greater, because we have to save our men. We really, really do. And we need to help them to be able to be vulnerable, not just in public, but in private, to be vulnerable and accept that, we're all human. We all have these struggles. We all feel pain. We all feel sad. And that is okay, because that's how God made us.
Thank you so very much, Sister Shauntée. And I just want to join with you in giving this quote, which I found again, and it was said by Margaret Gill. And for those, Margaret Gill is a Barbadian, and she is an advocate for mental health because of from her own experience that she went through with the stigma and having to go through work and employment and that kind of stuff. And what she said was, you haven't lost any dignity as a human being by being diagnosed with a mental illness. Being diagnosed with a mental illness is like being diagnosed with any illness. It is an illness. It's not a character flaw. So you have to accept your own value as a human being and don't let anybody take that away from you.
Excellent.
Yes, that's what she said as part of her own fight with mental illness and having to deal with it, and to start to help to remove that stigma that is so often attached with mental illness, what those things are. So, Sister Shauntée, what are two things? Pardon?
There's a hand. There's just one hand.
There's a hand. Oh, okay. I'm now seeing it. Thank you. Sister Sandra, yeah, sorry. Go ahead. You can go ahead. You can.
Not hearing anything.
No, I'm not.
We can hear now. The person was just speaking.
No, that's somebody else. Oh, hi. Okay, good. Yes, I'm hearing you now.
Yeah, I'm good night all, and I guess want to thank you so much for the program. It's very informative, and I think it can do well to help and aid a lot of persons in this time where we are going through this pandemic or whatever it is that we are going through, rather than the COVID, the whatever.
Yes.
I just want to share a little experience that I had years ago when I was young. Now, I had an uncle who was under a lot of stress, and it only took a very small, or not small, but something big to cause him to trip out. And he tripped out when his mother died. He had problems for a very long time. No one knew that he had the problem. And then when his mother died, he tripped out. And I was a part of that, seeing him going through from stage to stage, from he tripped out, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. And it came so bad that he was walking the street like some Brazilians will call it a paro. And it hurt me so much as a youngster that I have come to realize and see a lot of people in their lives, even in church, abuse a lot of people, and sometimes they think that is okay because they're going to church and they have the right to do it because they are Christian, and they don't see nothing wrong with it at times. And sometimes it has me wondering why people don't really go and get the help that they really need from the professionals that are like the person that is her name is Shauntée, who's counseling us or talking to us tonight. And I think it's very important for we to help persons to understand as soon as possible that they can get the help or get to confess or come forward to say that they need the help. The better it is. It only takes something drastic or traumatic in their life to cause them to trip out.
True.
And it's very, 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 and I think there's one thing tonight, for this program for me tonight is very, very important to emphasize to people that they need to come forward to get the help, don't matter how small it is, because things bother us psychologically and we carry them on our own for such a long time. And we think, we don't say, but there's nothing wrong with it, ain't nothing wrong with it, until we hurt ourselves and then we hurt somebody and then it's sorry about it. And then it does more damage than good. When you hurt yourself and hurt somebody, and it takes a lot of time to recover and to be healed of that problem, it's better than if you go for the help as soon as you can. So to wrap up, I think that one of the things when before you finish tonight to truly emphasize to people to get the help when they have any type of problem, is to seek the help and try to get the help that they need, so that the healing process of what they may be facing and don't understand it, that they will get help from it. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Tyrone. Yes, that's true. So Shauntée, I'm not seeing any other questions, but what I want you to do for me and for all of us, and just like what Brother Tyrone was saying, give us 2 points out of all that you have said, 2 key things that you want us to really remember, outside of the fact that mental illness is just like any other illness, and we should get help. But what are 2 other things that you would want us to take away from here?
I guess the 2 things for me would be, 1, that we all sit on the continuum and our progress to the left or to the right is influenced by the experiences that we have from day to day and the way that we interpret those experiences. And moving from green to beige to orange, etc., it is not indicative of anything being wrong with you or any sin or anything like that. It is indicative of us being human and living in a sin-cursed earth.
Yes.
The other thing, life and death are in the power of the tongue. And I just want us to sit with that and really understand what it means. It is not just a text for us to quote. We have power. Our words have power over ourselves and over other persons. So we have to be very, very careful how we wield that power.
Yes. Thank you so very much. And so for those of you who are in the chat, the information for LISS, for which Sister Shauntée is a part of, it's in the chat. And you can also, for those of you on YouTube, you can also see that information that's up now on the screen. So you can just jot down that information. Sister Shauntée, if it's possible, that you can probably send us the chart with the continuum, or let us know where we can have that, because I think that that's a key point, a key piece of information that we should have, because if we're honest with ourselves, many of us are not in the green. And that, as you said, it's not that that's a bad thing, but at least we know when it is that we need to put a little more self-care into ourselves, and to, like one of your points was saying, we need to monitor ourselves as well. That's something that we need to do, and being honest with ourselves, so that we see where we are on the continuum and know when it is we need to do a little more self-care, or when it is that we may need to get that extra help. Knowing that getting that help does not mean in any way that we are off our rockers.
It's true.
Right. So I just want to thank you so very much. You did an excellent job again tonight with helping us to better understand what mental health is, and to help us to get past that stigma. And I was even glad for our gentleman who spoke out, because as Brother Justin said, from the discussion at his workplace, we know for sure that when it comes to dealing with these things, men are not usually very expressive. Because of that, they internalize it a little more. We really need, we cannot afford to lose any more of our young men, honestly. in the way that we have been seeing recently. So
It's true.
as you said, we see persons just going along and we think, yes, they're happy, oh, they look fine and what's not. But we are all dealing with things internally, some better than some, but at least we are getting ways and we're hearing ways, learning ways in which we can better take care of our minds and ourselves. Pastor Prescott, I don't know that we have any special prayer requests, but no prayer is a wasted prayer. And so I invite you, Pastor, to join us now as you give us the announcements, as well as to say a special prayer on the district's behalf, even that some persons may not have come forward, but it is that they really want to do better. So welcome, Pastor.
Thank you, Nicole. And I also want to thank Shauntée,
Shauntée.
right, Shauntée Walters for her presentation. And maybe I should have asked her if she thinks it is time that we also have a yearly, or yearly appointment with our counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist.
I would agree that that's important. We do
I'm
our maintenance.
I'm asking a question in the context of COVID, because we're experiencing so many challenges and we're telling ourselves we will get through.
Yeah. So yeah, it is important. As I said, we do maintenance, and as therapists ourselves, we go to counseling because it's important. Yeah, you just need to be able to talk to some person sometimes.
Okay, thank you. Here are the announcements for this evening. On May the 9th, we will begin our East Caribbean Conference Health Week, and that will continue until the 15th. So the 15th of May is going to be a special Sabbath where the East Caribbean Conference Health Department will be in charge. After that week, we will enter into another week, the Ministerial Evangelistic Campaign Series, May the 16th to May the 23rd. So May the 22nd is also going to be a special Sabbath where the East Caribbean Conference will be in charge. On Wednesday evening, that is Wednesday coming, we will have our prayer meeting at 7:30. And this coming Sabbath, May the 8th, all the churches in the district will be having in-person worship service. These are all the announcements for now. I do hope that you will fit in wherever you are required. Let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, we are so grateful that we could have listened tonight to the presentation. We recognize, Lord, that you are interested not only in our spiritual welfare, but you are interested in our whole being, our physical and our mental welfare. I pray to God that the message we have heard tonight will help us to, first of all, recognize which part on the continuum we are on, and if we need help, help us, Lord, to seek help, because it is better to seek help early so that we can deal with the challenges or the problems that we are encountering. We pray that God, that you continue to be with us as individuals, continue to be with the Sister Walters as she continue to minister for you in this area. We pray now that as we're about to separate, that your Holy Spirit will be with us, guard, guide, and direct. And Lord, we pray that when you come, you will save us. This is our prayer. In Jesus' precious name, amen and amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor. And again, I want to thank you, Shauntée, for your presentation. And I want to thank all of you who were here with us tonight here on Zoom, or for those of you who were on YouTube. Make sure that you share this video with someone. Make sure that they, as YouTube goes, make sure that they like, subscribe, and that they share. Make sure that you're sharing, because this is good information that we need to share. So it's goodbye from us at St. Thomas District of Seventh-day Adventists until Wednesday night, when you can join us again for our prayer service. Have a good night, everybody.
Today we are at the ECC Conference Center, where we are packing more items to send for the St. Vincent Relief. We want to give 1,300 meals every day in collaboration with our brothers and sisters there in St. Vincent. So we are packing up so we can take to the Coast Guard so we can send down. Some of the items that we would have received would be oil and milk and flour and sugar and rice and macaroni and all canned foods for the ladies. And for children, we have a lot of things for the children in terms of wipes and Pampers and lotion. Similarly for the women, we have the pads and napkins and all these things we have. Through sponsorship of the Caribbean Union Conference, they would have sponsored 18 tanks, water tanks, 3 commercial stoves, along with all the utensils and the big pots and all the things that go along with it. If you want to donate your food stuff, bring them over to the conference center here in Britain's Crossroad on Mondays and Tuesdays between 9 to 1, so we can pack them up, get them ready, so we can ship to our friends there in St. Vincent and the Grenadines with our project F1300, giving at least 1,300 meals every day.